Today on Forbes, tanking COVID-19 vaccine sales are crushing biotech billionaire fortunes. In August 2021, investors in biotech firms Moderna and BioNTech were riding high. Both companies were raking in billions of dollars in profits from their successful COVID-19 vaccines as governments around the world pushed people to get vaccinated and paid the bill. Both stocks hit a peak on August 9th that year, boasting a combined market capitalization of $304 billion. At $195 billion, Moderna was worth more than Merck, which had more than 3 times its revenues. Forbes counted 8 billionaires from the two companies at the time, worth a combined $116 billion. They ranged from identical twin brothers Andreas and Thomas Strungman, early backers of BioNTech, who had ridden the stock to a $31 billion fortune apiece, to Moderna president Stephen Hoge, with a $2.6 billion net worth. Now, it's almost all gone. Hit by a 1-2 punch of plunging vaccination rates and the reluctance of governments worldwide to continue to pay for them, Moderna and BioNTech now trade 95% and 78% below their peaks, respectively. 5 of those 8 billionaires are still members of the 3 Comma Club, but they are now worth less than a third of what they once were, a combined $28.8 billion. More bad news for the companies came in the form of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a vocal vaccine skeptic, who Donald Trump chose as his Secretary of Health and Human Services, giving him oversight of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Since his confirmation to the position in February, he's unleashed predictable chaos, firing the thousands of federal healthcare employees, including the directors of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and dismissing all 17 members of the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices, which issues recommendations on how vaccines should be used. He then replaced them with a hand-picked panel of vastly less experienced advisors, including 2 outspoken opponents of COVID-19 vaccines. Despite pandemic-era promises of newfangled mRNA vaccines for everything from HIV to influenza, both Moderna and BioNTech are still almost entirely financially reliant on COVID-19 vaccines. A full 95% of Moderna's $3.2 billion in revenue last year came from COVID-19 vaccine sales. The equivalent figure for BioNTech was 88% of its $3 billion in revenue. Evan Seigerman, a senior biotech and pharma analyst at BMO Capital Markets, says, quote, "Even before RFK was making noise, you weren't seeing a ton of use of COVID vaccines." Moderna and BioNTech's shares fell in late 2021 through 2022, alongside U.S. vaccination rates. By October 2022, only 34% of Americans had received a booster shot, a steep drop from the 80% who had received at least 1 dose. Globally, only 32% of people had received at least 1 booster by December 2023, compared to 67% who got the initial vaccines, according to the World Health Organization. Uptake of subsequent boosters has remained low. According to CDC data, only 23% of Americans got a COVID booster shot for the 2023-24 season by August 2024. That rate wasn't much higher among the elderly, who are more vulnerable to the disease. Just 40% of Americans over the age of 65 got the booster last year. The Trump administration's policies will undoubtedly push those numbers even further down. In August, the FDA approved Moderna and BioNTech's most recent COVID-19 vaccines, but restricted them to adults over 65 years old. Younger folks are only supposed to get the vaccine if they have a high risk of severe complications from the disease. That marked a change from previous policy, where the shot was approved for all adults. On September 19th, the new, less mainstream version of the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices came close to requiring a prescription for all COVID-19 vaccines, which would have made it far more complicated to get a routine booster shot. The panel ultimately decided against it. For full coverage, check out Giacomo Tagnini's piece on Forbes.com. This is Kieran Meadows from Forbes. Thanks for tuning in.